À Paris, quand un amour fleurit, ça fait pendant des semaines deux cœurs qui sourient, tout ça parce qu'ils s'aiment à Paris. Au printemps, sur les toits, les girouettes tournent et font les coquettes avec le premier vent qui passe indifférent, nonchalant. Car le vent, quand il vient à Paris, n'a plus qu'un seul souci, c'est d'aller musarder dans tous les beaux quartiers de Paris. Le soleil, qui est son vieux copain, est aussi de la fête, et comme deux collégiens, ils s'en vont en goguette dans Paris. Et la main dans la main, ils vont sans se frapper, regardant en chemin si Paris a changé. Il y a toujours des taxis en maraude qui vous chargent en fraude avant le stationnement, où y a encore l'agent des taxis. Au café, on voit n'importe qui boit n'importe quoi, qui parle avec ses mains, qui est là depuis le matin au café.
On behalf of Robert, Devchich and the GB Art Gallery, on behalf of the Polish Cultural Institute, who are kindly supporting this evening's event, and of Jasia Reichardt and the Themerson estate. And as you probably know, as well as celebrating the art of Franciszka in another wonderfully rich display of her art, for which Jasia and I are indebted to you, Robert, and deeply grateful for the exhaustive and generous support you've given to the project in every detail. We're also here to celebrate the publication and launch of a very special book, which somehow manages to be both sumptuous and poignantly moving, which is a rare combination of both. And this is the Unposted Letters, 1940-42. The book was painstakingly edited and translated by Jasia, most sensitively designed by Pedro Cid Roenka, and published as a generous final gift to the Themersons by their friends in Amsterdam, Jaco and Elizabeth Groot. So finally, before the main business of the evening, and without wishing in any way to step on Neal's toes, I'd like to mention, for the benefit of those who don't already know it, another book, which was published last year, which is a kind of nerve-tingling trailer for the Unposted Letters. And this is 15 Journeys from Warsaw to London, which is Jasia's movingly simple account of her anything but simple childhood years in Poland. And it tells a very important part of the same story as Unposted Letters, and I commend it to you if you're not familiar with it. And so we're fortunate and privileged to have Neal Ascherson here this evening to throw his special light on the Unposted Letters. Neal is, of course, an authority on all things Polish in the post-war years, and he also knew and became a friend of the Themersons in the 1980s. So I'm very happy you've agreed to be with us this evening, Neal, and delighted to ask you to talk to us now.
This is the book about, in the end, it's the book about love between two people who didn't think they could possibly live without each other and had to try it for 2 awful and very dangerous years. But what I wanted to read out was the diminutives in Polish. These are mostly letters and telegrams and unposted letters and ID cards and postcards between Stefan Themerson and Franciszka. Stefan and Franciszka. Stefan. Stefan. Stefanek. Stefanku, which is vocative. Stefulek. Stefulku, vocative. Stefcio. Stefciu, vocative. Stef. Franciszka. Franka. Franeczka. Franeczko, vocative. Franusz. Franek. So it goes. And that's what part is about. And they are extraordinary letters. That's the guts of this amazing book, of the letters, some of which Franciszka didn't post because they were too, well, it wasn't that she thought, she did think, of course, that other people would read them. She thought she was going to be right about that because Stefan was in Vichy France, in Sevier turn. She had managed to get herself to London, was working with the Polish government in exile. So the kind of distances and problems of enemies, enemy frontiers which they had to cross to communicate with each other were staggering. And the distance, and many of their communications didn't arrive, many arrived months late, went to the wrong place and so on and so forth, or went to addresses which they already left because they'd been moved somewhere else, whatever it might be. So that's the letters, particularly Franciszka's letters, which are passionate, asking herself all the time how she can live without him, but at the same time asking for his reassurance that there can be some kind of decent, humane, normal, creative life after the war, that it hasn't just stopped because of the unspeakable things which are taking place. And Stefan, more calm, steady, and the book is a wonderful account of when he wanders about Paris in the first days of German occupation, and he's looking at, he's noticing cats, cataloguing swallows, and doing that sort of thing, picking up the inward thing as well. And at one time, the hostel gets turned over by the police in a raid against sinister foreign refugees, which continues to be happening. He caught him in the middle of an argument whether Jewish philosophy was woolly or not. So when the police had gone and wanted to tighten things up, it went on. And he started off saying, Spinoza is not woolly. And this calm, profound assurance, confidence in the importance of permanence of culture was what Franciszka needed and feared she might lose if, that seemed perfectly possible, they would never see each other again. And that's a part of the book. And another part of it is the documentation, the materiality of the unbelievable bureaucracy involved in trying to get Stefan out of Vichy France to London to rejoin the Polish army, to rejoin Franciszka. And, this book, it's wonderful what is in there. I mean, the postcards, every kind of stamp, the identity cards, the visas, because of course you can imagine what you probably can't imagine in the kind of Europe you live in, that you have to get, well, you see, in order to get to Lisbon, where you might get a passage on a British plane if you establish a priority on the basis of British permission to land in Britain, you had to get a Portuguese transit visa, but you couldn't get that unless you got a Spanish transit visa. To get a Spanish transit visa, then you had to have an exit permit to leave France, but you couldn't have an exit permit to leave France unless you had an entry permit to enter Spain with a transit, and then they only wouldn't to Portugal as well, and so on. And so on, and so it went on and on. It was unbelievable. People said quietly, Kafka, which is just a sort of understatement, really, about what it was like. And many of these documents are in this book, and they are material objects, some of them in colour, and they're good to look at. Even the sinister, pathetic postcards with a Hitler, Adolf Hitler stamp on, coming from the Warsaw Ghetto, where the rest of Franciszka's family was. Now, I think it's all these soliloquies which are here, and they are wonderful. Their thoughts about what is normality, their thoughts about appearances and reality. They are thinking all the time, particularly Stefan, Franciszka is doing, if you like, the passion, and also discovering herself as an artist. I think that's very important. She discovered her line, which you could see. I mean, I like it best in the very, very simple things that she did in wartime. Of course, we then developed all this. And some of the drawings here, the line drawings, but also the line drawings with some color on them, are violent, and they say something about war, which is in its very economic way, so it's tough as because it's chemical, and perhaps more effective, because what is, well, war is about slaughter, ruins, yes, but it's also about loss, absence, the taking away of people who want to be here and are not, and whether they're taken forever, they're just not there, but absence, missing. And so there's a great, in that sense, this is a real book about war. This is just a typical example of Franciszka Reichardt, how she wrote to him. This letter is one of the unposted ones. Yeah. Do you remember once when things were very bad for us, you didn't want to cuddle up with you, to calm down and to forget, because you said that it's like valerian, it's just anesthetizes. Look how I console myself with the thought that you know how to, perhaps want to, and are able to contain the storm by yourself during that lonely, difficult period. And it says, I so need your wise eyes here so much, my pet, not just as an intoxicant. Quite the contrary, I need you here to give me back some strength and purpose, so that we can both believe in being alive in these dreadful times, and get our teeth into something worthwhile again, and know that it matters. I need to feel some grounding in normality under my feet, to hold back all the terror and baseness that's everywhere around. And that was what they could give each other. But they made their lives as best they could be in a kind of awful internment place, Wadley, Vichy France for Poles, which must be an insupportable kind of Polish community quarrelling among itself, trying to expel each other on the grounds that they like the wrong painters. So clearly, if you like the work of Cossack, that tells me something about your politics, your background, this kind of thing which is, unfortunately, was then prevalent and has occasionally surfaced since, let's face it, was going on. And Stefan got involved in this, and he did a magnificent intervention and defense of a painter who was sort of self-constituted committee and tribunal set itself up and said, this painter, Mr. Neal, is going to be expelled, you see. And he gave long argument about absolutely idiotic as it was, just a result of prejudice, nothing else, political rubbish. Anyway, eventually, after all these telegrams and visas and applications and enormous mass of bureaucratic paperwork, he got there. Of all those documents, I think the worst one, I wonder if I can find it, the worst one is in English, because it's a nasty little letter from a wartime department called Trading with the Enemy Department. Tight letter from Franciszka. She had been managing to get some food parcels to her family in the ghetto in Warsaw through Lisbon. And they wrote to her to to point out that this was technically trading with the enemy, because Warsaw was now under German occupation and therefore assisting the enemy. And she was immediately assessed. They added that they were extraordinarily generous not to prosecute her immediately, but they understood that she hadn't quite realized what a grave an offense this was, to send food parcels to starving Jewish family. Anyway, that's it there.
There's a follow-up to that, Neal, where she goes back, they write to her a second time and say, we understand that the lady from the same address as you're living was written to by us, and so we have reason to believe that you did understand that what you were doing was...
So that counts. Anyway, I won't go on. There's one more thing I want to read. Or, to give you a flavour of how wonderful and extraordinary this book is. Multifarious. It's full of absolute kind of stew of every different kind of material and approach. Poetry, short stories, letters, postcards, and of course wonderful illustrations. Oh yes, I'm drawing a bit, Franciszka. I'm drawing a bit recently, and I miss you so terribly. To talk in some human way to make sense of things, to sort things out, to clarify what's going on. Here one lives in such confusion of ideas, problems, sacrifices, personal interests, and petty harassments, in such a crowd of good and bad idiots, that we have to hold each other's hand firmly, not to drown. Do you feel, darling, that I'm always holding your hand? Well, he did. And eventually, after all this, he turned up. And he turned up finally, I think it was on the 16th of August, 1942, when he arrived on a plane from Lisbon in London, and they were reunited. And what they passed the time, and it's so typical. You see, he was frantically writing the lecture of Professor Ma, who pronounce him. But she, equally characteristically, was trying to teach herself English by reading Ulysses in English. Dictionary. Anyway, so that desperate period suddenly came to an end, and they were together again. But on almost the same day, this has to be said, although they didn't know that, in Poland, the Artistry ghetto was liquidated, as they say. And both their mothers committed suicide. And most of her family did not survive, except mercifully for Jasia, to whom all the credit for this article of love through her has been preserved.
Thank you. So I'd like to ask you to join me in raising your glass to the spirits behind this whole occasion, to the Themerson.
C'est une image.
Sans arrêt au son de l'accordéon dans les rues. Depuis qu'à Paris on a pris la Bastille, dans chaque faubourg, à chaque carrefour, il y a des gars et il y a des filles qui sans arrêt sur les pavés, nuit et jour font des tours à Paris.